In this course, we'll also talk about recent trends in internet censorship, and in particular, the broadening of censorship to include not just technical techniques whereby protocols are filtered, but also things like content moderation, personalization, filter bubbles, and platform censorship. There are a couple of important trends in internet technology to understand, particularly as they pertain to internet censorship. In particular, beyond just filtering or blocking access to information, entities that wish to control online information and the distribution of that information are increasingly engaging in manipulation tactics. And we'll read about those in some of the course material. The centralization of the internet infrastructure as well is posing increasing concerns. Whereas in an idealistic sense, the internet was designed in a way to be robust to all kinds of attacks, failures, and attempts to block communication, in reality, a lot of the internet infrastructure these days is becoming increasingly centralized. We use a very small number of platforms to exchange messages on, say, social media, but also even hosting a website or registering a domain name is becoming an activity that's managed and controlled by an increasingly small number of entities. This type of centralization not only has implications for robustness, but also for the free flow of information and resilience to censorship, because it's becoming increasingly easy for a single commercial platform to decide what might be acceptable or unacceptable speech. And often it's not just that platform making the decision, but they may be making that decision at the behest of a government or some other organization. Information manipulation entails a bunch of different tactics that we'll talk about in more detail in the course, including sock puppeting, which is the false appearance of independent speakers or the false appearance of collective action, astroturfing, which is the false appearance of a grassroots movement, and disinformation, or intentionally spreading false information. While we often think of disinformation or information manipulation campaigns as being automated, in many cases they might be just large groups of humans. Here's an example and a study about the so-called 50 Cent Party in China, where the government pays citizens to fabricate social media posts to create various kinds of distraction or other types of manipulation campaigns. Social media platforms and other personalized content platforms are also subject to manipulation through personalization algorithms. Online personalization, of course, is creating situations where we only see things that already suit our own tastes. That phenomenon is sometimes called the filter bubble. But we'll see in this course how personalization algorithms and automated personalization can also be exploited by attackers to control the things that you do and don't see. Another area where censorship is coming into play is in content moderation, and in particular, the increasing pressure on content platforms and social media platforms to moderate or remove the content that is hosted on their sites. There's also an increasing pressure to use automated tools to do this. And some of this runs up right against the state of the art in terms of machine learning capabilities. And so we'll look at how content moderation is done and also how it might be done at scale, either with automated detection techniques or in collaboration with human moderators, as well as how content moderation processes can be exploited, both to instrument censorship and also to manipulate the content that users do or do not see. Centralization of internet content platforms is exacerbating the risk of takedown, as I mentioned earlier. One notable example of this happened 5 years ago, where Cloudflare, a popular web hosting platform, decided that it was going to stop serving content to users who attempted to view websites via the Tor network. Cloudflare also terminated other websites, including the Daily Stormer. Now, whether or not you agree with the particular takes or decisions that Cloudflare made in these cases, the implications of this amount of leverage on internet content or services by any single platform should be enough to concern you. Because where in these cases, Cloudflare as a private entity was making decisions with huge ramifications about who gets to see or who doesn't get to see internet content, of course, these corporations may also be at the behest of other entities, including foreign governments. It's becoming increasingly clear through centralization that a very small number of companies in web hosting, in platforms, in DNS, and in other parts of the infrastructure hold huge leverage in determining who gets to speak online and who gets to be heard, as well as who gets to communicate with one another. In this more complex world of modern internet censorship, I like to think about Molly Roberts' taxonomy of fear, friction, and flooding. Fear, making people afraid to publish or view content, often by making it illegal. Friction, by making it difficult to find or access content, which can take a variety of forms, from throttling internet speeds to manipulating or burying internet search results. And flooding, whereby an adversary might dilute discourse with additional distracting or irrelevant information in an attempt to steer discussion or otherwise control the way that information is being exchanged and discussed online. In this context, later in the course, we'll be discussing this modern theory of censorship as well as these more complex notions of platform censorship in more detail in these two very interesting and exciting books.